I was asked to speak briefly about our approach at ASSS to the treatment of prosthetic joint infections. So our approach basically is based on whether there's retained hardware or not. When all the hardware is removed, either the 2-stage, or the 1-stage, or the 1.5 exchange, or otherwise sometimes called the destination spacer, where the spacer is planned to be left in, we treat with 6 weeks of high-dose antibiotics. And by high dose, generally it's IV, but it can be oral using antibiotics with high oral bioavailability, such as the fluoroquinolones, linezolid, and clindamycin. In the setting of retained infected hardware, we again treat with 6 weeks of high-dose antibiotics, and that is then followed by anywhere from 3 to 6 months, usually 3 months for a hip, 6 months for a knee, of appropriate oral antibiotics, which is something that does vary. That is a practice that is certainly not standardized throughout the world or even in the United States. We do occasionally have patients in which surgery is not an option, and in those patients we will just do antibiotic salvage, basically with, again, sort of mimicking the same protocols we do for a DARE. Obviously the outcomes are less than ideal in that situation. The antibiotics we use when it comes to the sensitive staph, MSSA, MSSEs, the methicillin sensitive staph epidermidis and other coagulase negative staph, we use cefazolin or oxacillin, and I'll get to rifampin in a second. And for MRSA, MRSE, traditionally we've been using lots and lots of vancomycin. Over the past 10 years or so, we've increased our use of daptomycin as the cost has come way down. It's also a much easier drug to give to patients. It's QD, has an excellent safety profile. Very, very rarely have to stop it in anybody for any sort of problems in the long term. We use rifampin we give in the setting of retained infected hardware only, not when all the hardware is removed. For the strep viridins, we use ceftriaxone versus continuous intravenous penicillin G. And for the enterococcus, our standard is intravenous penicillin G, or Zosyn. There are other narrower spectrum IV antibiotics which work for enterococcus, but they're not amenable, at least for outpatient home intravenous therapy, which is what most of our patients do. The medications are shipped to them and they're taught to self-administer. Most drugs are not stable enough for that other than penicillin G and Zosyn. For QD bacterium, which is not something you see often in hips and knees, but we do see it, usually several a year. Our drugs of choice are ceftriaxone versus vancomycin or clindamycin. Gram negatives, which is of course an incredibly broad array of organisms, but we use fluoroquinolones whenever we can, given their excellent bone penetration, bioavailability, and excellent track record. I should go back to say that not in the U.S. so much, but increasing in the U.S., but especially throughout Europe, the first-line treatment for staph, either Staph aureus, Staph epidermidis, coagulation of staph, or fluoroquinolones plus rifampin, allowing the patient to take an entire oral regimen, and the literature supports it shows an excellent track record, which makes me wonder why we don't use it more in the U.S. For Candida, our first-line drug is fluconazole when sensitive. Fluconazole also has excellent bioavailability and can be given orally. Thank you. So in terms of suppressive antibiotic therapy, which is, again, sort of a very not controversial, but a very difficult area to navigate in terms of treating patients with retained infected hardware. This past summer, I was part of a group that published a review of the literature looking through what literature exists to support the use of suppressive antibiotic therapy. And this is treatment basically after the standard, anywhere from 3 to 6 months of treatment. That is not considered suppressive antibiotic. This is post 6 months. And our basic takeaway was that the literature is very poor and does not really give any support to any sort of treatment. And this mostly is due to the vast majority of studies were very small, heterogeneous, and with limited follow-up. And the studies are done, there's really been no standard approach to this. So it's very hard, even meta-analyses are not very valuable when crunching these numbers together. There have been 2 other recent reviews, taking a similar approach to us, and they as well found similar findings that there is just no good literature either way really to support suppressive antibiotic therapy, though many of us do it in practice, and it is part of some of the guidelines the IDSA guidelines. One drug which is changing our practice is a relatively new drug, dalbavancin. I don't know if it's available in India. It's a lipoglycopeptide, a long-acting glycopeptide similar to vancomycin. It has a half-life of 14 days, which allows it to be given standardly given in a two-dose regimen, one dose on day 1 and the second dose on day 8. And that is it. That provides adequate MICs for all staff. It has very low MICs for staff. And this replaces the 6-week therapy of IV antibiotics or oral antibiotics. Dalbavancin, though it is a glycopeptide, actually has an excellent toxicity profile. What limits our use of it has been the cost. It has been extremely expensive, though insurance companies are now beginning to wake up to the fact that giving this drug obviates the need for 6 weeks of intravenous antibiotic care. And there is now a role, the last slide, then you can all go eat. Dalbavancin is also not so much in orthopedics, but it is an excellent option for salvage of chronically infected patients with Staph aureus for long-term suppression, where there have been multiple studies looking at it in vascular infections, intravascular infections, LVADs, stents, where dalbavancin has been given for months or upwards over a year on end on a Q2-week, Q4-week basis to suppress infection. And I will leave you with that. Thank you very much.